Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the incredibly complex but really important world of ethical AI. To have a real conversation about it, we all need to be on the same page, speaking the same language. And that's exactly what we're going to build today, a shared vocabulary.
So, just so you know, this is the first of a three-part series, and it's all based on a fantastic glossary put together by Virtualization Options LLC. We're going to start right at the beginning with the absolute bedrock, the foundational terms you've got to know. I mean, think about it. AI systems are already making huge decisions about our lives. Whether we get a loan, if we get an interview for a job, even helping with medical diagnoses. So the big central question is, how do we make sure those decisions are good ones, that they're fair, that they're just, and that they're responsible? Well, let's get into it.
Okay, here's our game plan for today. We're going to break this down into 4 key areas. We'll start with responsibility and control, then move into bias and fairness. After that, we'll tackle privacy and transparency, and finally, we'll pull back to define the entire field.
First up, responsibility and control. This really boils down to a simple but profound question. When an AI system gets something wrong, who's actually in charge? Who's responsible? I mean, where does the buck stop?
And that brings us to our very first term, accountability. Now, this isn't some vague, fuzzy idea. It's about assigning clear, specific responsibility for how an AI behaves. So if a bank's AI starts unfairly denying loans to a certain group, accountability means we know exactly which person or which team is responsible for auditing that system, fixing it, and making it right. It's about making sure someone is always on the hook.
I love this quote because it frames the rules around AI just perfectly. You can't just build a monument, a static, unchanging set of rules, and then just walk away. Technology moves way too fast for that. Instead, governing AI is like tending a garden. It's a living system that needs constant weeding, watering, and adjustment to actually thrive. That's the whole idea behind adaptive governance.
Now, in really high-stakes situations, like life and death or life-altering decisions, you absolutely have to have a human in the loop. That means a real person has to be there to review and sign off on the AI's recommendation. But we have to be careful here, because there's this thing called the automation paradox. It's where we get so used to the AI being right that we start to trust it blindly and just stop paying close attention. That oversight has to be meaningful, not just a rubber stamp.
All right, let's shift gears and tackle one of the biggest, most talked about challenges in AI, bias and fairness. How do we build these incredibly powerful systems so that they treat people equitably? And, just as importantly, avoid repeating the same historical prejudices that we humans have?
So the crucial thing to understand is that bias isn't just one single problem. It can sneak into a system at almost any stage. It can be baked in from the very beginning in the design choices, it can happen in the data you select to train it on, or it can even be in the goal you tell the AI to aim for. The classic textbook example is a hiring AI that's trained on a company's past hiring data, and it just learns to perpetuate whatever discrimination was already there.
So, how do we actually measure this stuff? Well, one of the key tools is a concept called disparate impact. It often uses a legal standard known as the 80% rule. Basically, if an AI is selecting people from a protected group, say based on race or gender, at a rate that's less than 80% of the rate for the most selected group, well, that is a huge red flag for systemic bias. And the key here is this can happen even if nobody intended for it to be biased.
But here's where it gets really tricky. The word fairness itself is super complicated. It doesn't just mean one thing. Are we talking about statistical fairness, where the outcomes are basically the same for different groups? Or procedural fairness, where everyone is judged by the exact same process? Or what about distributive fairness, where we try to account for historical injustices? And what's wild, and frankly, what makes this so challenging, is that sometimes these different ideas of fairness can directly contradict each other.
This whole conversation leads us perfectly into our next section, privacy and transparency. Because at the end of the day, this is all about trust. I mean, if we can't see how an AI system works or what it's doing with our personal information, how on earth can we be expected to trust its decisions?
This quote is just the perfect analogy for a core principle here, called data minimization. Seriously, think about it. When you pack for a trip, you bring what's necessary, right? You don't bring your entire house. The exact same idea should apply to data. Companies should only collect the data they absolutely need for a specific purpose. Because, simply put, the less data they have, the less risk there is for everyone.
And here's what that looks like in the real world, plain and simple. A food delivery app? Yeah, it obviously needs your address to deliver the food, and your payment info to charge you. But does it need access to your entire photo library?
or your contact list, or your health data? No way. That's data minimization in action, drawing a very clear line between what's necessary and what's just a flat-out invasion of your privacy.
Okay, another key tool for protecting privacy is anonymization. That's the process of stripping out all the personal, identifying details from a dataset. But, and this is a really big but, true, perfect anonymization is incredibly difficult to pull off. In fact, clever analysts can sometimes take a few different anonymous datasets, combine them, and actually re-identify specific people. It's like putting shattered puzzle pieces back together. And this really gets to the heart of transparency, doesn't it? Let's say an AI denies your mortgage application. You don't just want to know that you were denied. You deserve to know why. This right here is explainability. It's not about understanding how the entire complex system works in general. It's about getting a clear reason for one specific decision that impacts your life.
All right, let's pull the camera back a bit. We've been looking at some of the really important details. Now let's zoom out and look at the big picture, the broad ideas that shape this entire field.
Okay, this is probably one of the most critical distinctions to get right. Think of AI ethics as your compass. It's the moral philosophy that points you in the right direction. It asks the big, thorny questions like, what should we do? AI governance, on the other hand, is the map. It's the practical, nitty-gritty framework, the rules, the roles, the processes that actually helps you get to where the compass is pointing. You absolutely need both to find your way.
So, when we use the umbrella term ethical AI, what are we really talking about? We're talking about this massive, ongoing, evolving conversation. It's about fundamental values, human rights, social justice, and human flourishing. And it's a living philosophy because as AI continues to change at a dizzying pace, so do the questions we have to ask about it.
Of course, it's not all just philosophy and frameworks. The field also has to deal with direct threats, people actively trying to break or fool these systems. These are called adversarial attacks. This could mean data poisoning, where you intentionally feed an AI bad data to mess up its training, or adversarial examples, where you create an image with tiny, invisible patterns that tricks a self-driving car into seeing a stop sign as a speed limit sign. There's even model stealing, where people try to reverse engineer and copy a company's valuable AI.
Okay, so let's wrap this up and put all these pieces together.
As you can see, it's all deeply connected, right? We have these big principles like fairness and privacy, we have techniques like explainability and anonymization to put them into practice, and we have governance structures to ensure there's accountability. So what can you do with this? Well, start by using this vocabulary. Start conversations. Ask tougher, better questions of the AI systems you interact with. Advocate for these ideas in your workplace or your community. And most of all, just keep learning, because this field is changing every single day. Your voice and your questions are what push this all in a better direction.
So, we've laid the groundwork. We now have the language, the shared vocabulary to build a solid foundation for talking about, debating, and ultimately shaping the future of AI. The real question is, what are we going to build on top of it? Join us for part 2, where we'll dig into exactly that.